Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, Leukemia Care and our panel. I'm noticing people are still joining, so I'll just go through a little preamble with you. Obviously today's topic is exercise and leukemia. What does exercise mean to you, and how can exercise help with your quality of life and health and well-being, recovery? And what are your barriers? What can you do? What can't you do? What's the advice? And we've got a great panel to cover a lot of these topics here with us today. Housekeeping, you won't be able to turn your videos on or speak, but please do use chat. If you've got any questions, please feed them in, and we've got a couple of people in the back room who will pick your questions up and feed them through to make sure the panel can answer them. In terms of an order of events, I'll do a quick run through as an intro, and then Fran will give us a talk, and then we'll have an open discussion and collect questions from the audience. We've already had quite a few in already, so you're giving us a bit of a head start. So with that in mind, I think maybe I could just take this moment to introduce everybody. Could I start with you, Fran? Fran, could you introduce yourself and your connection to the topic?
So my name is Fran. I'm one of the senior haematology physios at the Royal Hallamshire Hospital. So I work across a multitude of wards that cover mainly haematology patients. So my connection is, my employment is based around rehab for cancer patients, especially haematology.
Thank you for joining us. Really looking forward to your talk.
Thank you.
Mark, would you like to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark, 64 years old from sunny West Wales, diagnosed with AML in April 2018, had a bone marrow transplant in 2019, currently in remission and enjoying being alive and trying to run again.
Well, terrific. Look forward to hearing more. Thanks for joining us. Thea, we'd like to hear from you.
Thanks, Nick. So I'm Thea. We're going to tell our age at this. I feel like I need to follow Mark on this one. So I'm in my 40s, and I was diagnosed 6 years ago with APML, so acute promyelocytic leukemia. And I've been in remission now for 5 years, so doing well, finally discharged. I participated in a lot of sport pre-diagnosis. What I found with going through the whole, I hate the word journey, but going through the whole process of being diagnosed and treated and surviving, it's just given me a bigger zest to do more and do it bigger.
Terrific. Looking forward to hearing about it. I realised I didn't introduce myself. So hi everyone, I'm Nick. Many of you would have met me before. I too, funnily enough, I'm also a patient, and hopefully I won't have too much to share with you today because I think we've got a full agenda. I work in patient advocacy, and I'm our healthcare liaison officer. And I will hopefully manage to moderate a great discussion after Fran's talk. So Fran, please, would you mind taking it away, and would you mind sharing your screen?
Yeah. One sec. Is that okay there?
Yep.
So my talk's generally on the motivation for movement, and I've kind of labelled it in terms of the time of Corona, because obviously there's general barriers normally to exercise, but with COVID, it actually makes things a lot harder. So I'm trying to break down the barriers a little bit more towards trying to start up exercise, and as again, what Thea and Mark said, also building on the exercise you're already doing as well. So what I'm going to try and discuss is the importance and benefits of exercise. So to all ends of of where you guys are starting. So whether you're just starting out, or also to whether you're already regularly exercising, because there's always going to be benefits. Discussing mainly how to get started. So if you're just at a loss as to how to start, it can be really good to start to look at maybe trying to implement some strategies to help that. Sometimes I find it better to log sessions. So again, it's trying to find different ways that you can do that so that it starts to build on the journey of you starting exercise, or again, continuing on the journey you're already on. And common concerns, trying to break down those barriers as to maybe why you don't feel you can start. That's going to be really helpful to start to get you confidence up that that is something that you're really keen to do. How to exercise safely, and useful resources at the end, which are how to access maybe online services whilst things are still relatively quiet with the gym scenes, but also trying to encourage everybody to get started. So my job role as a senior physio at the Hallamshire Hospital, so as I said, I mainly work on the haematology wards, but my interest and specialism is in haematology, but have worked with COVID patients throughout the pandemic. So feel I can help again with any concerns around a multitude of areas in physio and the pandemic itself. So, but my key interest is rehab that those affected by haematology diseases. And also I work a lot with the acute patients in the hospital, so working around the treatment side effects as well, and how to get around that issue to still gain a full active life, but also trying to break things down to help you access further resources. So the physiotherapy role that I work in is an acute setting, but I also have a experience in the outpatient setting as well, as we normally run a haematology gym group for those patients that are maybe post-treatment or during treatment that really want to build on that exercise. So in normal circumstances, that's my love, is to get people rehabbed, get back up and running, get back to what you enjoy. And my role is to increase mobility and promote function, which is exactly what we're trying to do during this talk, as well as to try and help quality of life and improve functional independence as well with patients. Also, another way I wanted to try and use this talk is that the key role to educate and provide safe exercise and build confidence, because I find quite a lot of the time it's not that the patient doesn't have abilities, it's that we're not quite sure how to start. So hopefully in my talk I give you enough advice that would help you take this forward. And I'm also involved in we also help with the respiratory care as well. So it's also trying to go through the benefits of why exercise is good to help you be healthy from cardiovascular fitness as well. So at the moment, whether people have been in hospital or not, we know it's a difficult ward environment at the moment with COVID-19. So it might feel that if you've been in hospital pre-COVID to now, it might feel that you've got less options, and that can be demotivating in itself. So gyms are now open if it's something that you enjoy, but limited services, but there's also no outpatient sessions. So my gym patients haven't been in, and mainly online sessions, which is very isolating for some people who don't particularly enjoy online learning or online support groups. So it makes my job as an education side of things, as well as motivating, very difficult to access a lot of patients. So it's really good that this is going ahead to try and help access a lot more people. And people might feel that it's a slower service as well. So by the time you've got the services that you were discussing with the ward, that motivation and need may have gone. So it becomes very hard to then access what you feel you need at the time. And as you probably found with clinic appointments and physio itself, there's less face-to-face. So again, motivation and support feels a lot less. That's what we're trying to change here. If there's something as a resource online, you can refer back to it and start your journey from there, really. So I think during the times of COVID, I've tried to say that you shouldn't feel anything that you don't want to. And I think that it's not that you're not able to do things, or you're not able to go out, so you're failing at any exercise. It's that actually it's completely natural to not know where to turn, where everything's closed. You're not able to access things online. And it's really hard to kind of be able to get out of that feeling. So as now many services are unavailable, it becomes really hard to then know where else to go. So what I was trying to do is come up with a presentation to allow you to access services that you've maybe not thought of before. Because again, even with the vaccine rollout, there's a lack of clarity when it will end. So what I would really like to do is help you to know what to do now and what to do in the future as things start to open up as well. And I think sometimes what we're finding is that patients who are maybe newly diagnosed in this period of time where we've been in lockdown, you've had the new diagnosis and also that lockdown period where less socialization, it can become very, very hard to manage mental health wise. So I think, again, if I can take anything from this, I'd love to be able to help people with supporting mental health as well, to allow people to access what they feel they want. So goal setting is the first thing that we should always do whenever you start any exercise, either new or old, because what it does is it keeps you on track and it keeps you motivated. If we've not got that to start with, then it's really hard to then keep a consistent program going. So it's really good to know what you want the outcome to be, whether that is to maintain independence or set a running or walking goal that is in that you want to be able to achieve, to feel that pride that you've achieved something that's really, really quite special to you. So I think that what really can help someone to get onto that journey. And it's helping to identify what's important. If you're not a gym goer, gym exercises are maybe not what you need to be doing. And I think maybe the diagnosis may have given a different perspective of what is important. So it's always what you want to achieve and what you feel you enjoy, because that's the main thing of what quality of life is. If you enjoy it, you're going to really enjoy progressing and feeling kind of really good about yourself. And it's a sense of achievement. We've not all had a kind of successful lockdowns, and I think that sense of achievement will feel really good to be able to get out and achieve what you feel you want to when we've had such a rubbish year for the last year or so. So it's a really good motivating factor to know that you've achieved what you set out to do. And we've got probably panelists and also patients that have very, very different abilities and fitness. So again, it's able to build on skills you've already achieved, or building fitness to the point where you feel that actually you're achieving much more than you may have done pre-diagnosis. So it's progressing wherever your ability is already at, which I think is a really good sense of achievement. So actually setting the goals, make it specific to you. So it's not comparing to the next person and making their goal yours, because that might not be, you may not have that ability, or it may be too easy for you. So it's making sure that it's something that you feel that you can achieve, and it's something that you want to be able to achieve as well. And it's really important to do something that's time specific. So set it for maybe 6 or 12 weeks, or in 6 months want to be able to achieve X, Y, and Z. So it's not something that is ongoing, that there isn't a time to reassess, because that just means that there's something that doesn't then feel like you're achieving anything. So time specific is really important, because you've got that assessment, almost reassessment date to have a look and reevaluate what's going on, and make it achievable. It's very demotivating if you've got something that you never feel you're getting towards that goal. So make something that's maybe easy to achieve at first, and then step it up so that you actually feel that you are achieving the goals that you've set yourself. So and make it something that you're proud of, something that you've maybe not tried before, or something that you've always wanted to do and now feel you've got that ability and that capability to achieve. So I've made it, for an example, so in 4 weeks' time, I want to be able to walk 20 minutes a day and complete 2 home exercise classes per week. It's achievable to the patient's ability, and 4 weeks' time is a very time-specific time frame, which allows you to then reassess if you've been able to do that or not. And it's always really good to keep a log of the past goals as well, to see progression. So actually, you don't always recognise how far you've come in your journey, and looking back over the last however many months you've been doing it is actually really nice to then see how well you've been doing over the coming months as well. So a really good way to really reflect on your progression. So the benefits of exercise are numerous. I can go on for hours about the benefits of exercise, but if we can target the adult population, just cardiovascular fitness, reduction of risk of stroke and heart disease, and high blood pressure, that encompasses a lot in terms of any complications that may happen as you get older. I think that they're the main ones that I would like to focus on, which is the cardiovascular fitness. Obviously, the strength and range of movement of muscles are really important for daily function. But in terms of cognition, there's benefits of cognitive function, but the reduction of any mental health issues, the way that you can feel good about yourself and try to reduce the risk of any depression that might be there is also, it outweighs anything. The fact that you can be physically and mentally really strong through the benefits of exercise can really help resilience whilst we're still in lockdown, and just can help everything, help achieve all the goals that you feel you're going to set out to do. And it's also really important for thinking about quality of quality of life and sleep. So if it helps you sleep better, you're going to be able to take on more during the day, feel that your mood is regulated, and generally the benefits outweigh everything. And it's just such a great form of to kind of get on board with, to allow your health to only improve. So the government guidelines I've put, I like the diagram here, so it's quite easy to break down rather than it being loads of information that you can't actually absorb because there's too much on the page. So essentially it just says, in terms of the be active column, it's 150 minutes of moderate activity a week, and that breaks it down into walking, gardening, swimming, something that you enjoy. So it doesn't have to be vigorous, it just might mean a walk once a day with the dog, or enjoying longer walks in wherever that may be in the country, but something that you enjoy. And I think lots of people forget that things like gardening is actually exercise. So that's what I'm going to try to change a little bit in terms of your thought patterns, so that we are understanding that activity is also exercise. You could also go to the 75 minutes of vigorous exercise if you weren't so keen at doing the longer endurance exercise. So running, sport, stairs, anything like that, again, is, as long as you're doing 75 minutes, you're achieving the government guidelines. And I'm pretty sure quite a few people will be able to do that and feel like they could progress with that as well. So it's a good value to start to set yourself towards. It also says about building strength. So 2 sessions of building strength per week. So that might be the gym, but also aerobics, but even things like shopping and carrying bags, things that are going to be testing the muscles, using multiple muscle groups is also classed as strength training. So it depends on where you are in the journey as to what is suitable for you, but activities can definitely tick that box as well as formal exercise. And then improving your balance, there's lots of things that people can do, even just balance exercises or dancing, Tai Chi, there's yoga. People enjoy lots and lots of yoga or Tai Chi exercise. So I think that's really good to add into a routine if you feel that you need it, especially if you've got any chemo side effects that may increase risk of falls or reduce balance. So at the bottom, there's a big red banner which says sit less. So trying to keep your muscles active. So even if you're not feeling too well on a day, just trying to get up and about for a couple of minutes and then sit back down just will help stop that prolonged sitting and lying positions, and can start to challenge your muscle groups that little bit more frequently. So considerations for exercise. So how fit were you prior to the diagnosis? Because if you were had a really good level of fitness, that might be more achievable for you to achieve afterwards, rather than just maybe someone who wasn't as fit beforehand. So it's a good consideration, because then you know where you can almost compare yourself and see where we're at, so that we know how far we can progress as well. So it's really good to consider where you were previous to the diagnosis or treatment. Consider any pre-existing medical conditions such as heart problems. Again, it might be that you may need to take a step back with exercise, but it doesn't mean that we can't do it. So it's trying to think about how your medical conditions do affect you, but then how to incorporate that to allow that to be allow you to exercise as well. So it can also be considering the type of cancer and the treatments that you've had. So is it something that you're still on active treatment that you've got to factor in terms of the symptoms that may give you? Whether you're in remission and you're able to do a lot more because you're feeling much kind of that wellness, and you're feeling that you can really progress with that exercise. So it's that consideration of what you've got to fit in with hospital appointments and how well you're feeling within yourself. And any residual symptoms. So I will try and touch on the chemotherapy side effects, but the main ones that we tend to find in hospital are fatigue, there's bone pain, peripheral neuropathy, so pins and needles in your feet, and lymphedema from many different of the treatments. So it's how we can also factor that in to allow you to progress, but also manage it so it doesn't become overbearing for you to not be able to manage. And that's a really important part of exercise, is knowing your symptoms. And as I say, these can be barriers, but also a good indication of where to start. So it's a really good baseline for you to then progress from. The barriers mainly to exercise. The biggest one I find is cancer-related fatigue. So that can be from the chemotherapy or the disease itself. And I think fatigue is classified as tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep, and it can be very overbearing. And that fatigue is something that people then don't feel that you can always get through. But what we're finding is that through the gym groups that we're doing, constant and consistent exercises bringing fatigue scores down massively and improving quality of life of patients that we've been able to monitor pre-COVID. So it feels extremely overwhelming that the fatigue is there, but unable to even contemplate thinking about exercise. But as long as we pace it at a pace that is suitable for each individual, hopefully that fatigue will start to pass and start to reduce over a longevity of a few weeks, potentially a few months. But we have found quite a few patients in our gym group have actually found a real benefit from exercise and the fatigue side effects. There's also barriers to exercise, including time. So patients may go back to work or have family commitments, or just not find the time between doing household tasks or going to hospital appointments, and it can be really hard to fit in. So it's sometimes trying to find things that you can kind of join into daily life rather than actually finding an hour to go to a gym. So something we can definitely touch on a little later. Again, anxiety can be a real issue for people to really want to overcome, because if you're not an exercise pre-diagnosis, it can be really quite concerning to know where to start and where to kind of even just start to know where to look at exercise. So I think it's really worth thinking about what you want to gain from it and going back to the goals, and I think that will help manage the anxiety around it as well, because I think once you start exercising, endorphins, and you'll start to feel good about yourself, that may kind of abate a little bit. Quite a lot of people have come to me saying that I can't exercise because of equipment. I don't have any at home, but my advice is you can use anything in the house that's got a little bit of weight to it, or there's going outside, going walking. There's so many things that you can do for free without equipment. So I think it's not always focusing around gym equipment for strength training. It can be, you can use so many things in the house. So I think that's something that we can change perspectives. It might help a lot of people as well get more involved as well. And motivation, lockdown's been so lengthy. It's really, really hard to find that motivation. So I think it's trying to find, going back to goals again, trying to find that inner motivation of why we want to change and why we want to do that will really start to help you to start to formulate a plan to start exercising. General health, we've gone through the benefits of exercise. So whether there was any barriers to exercise that can really make you feel that you're not quite ready for that. And financial, again, people may feel that exercise comes with equipment and expensive gym memberships, and financially that is not something we can afford. And I think that's why I'm trying to change the perspective so that actually it can all be free and it can all be really beneficial, just in different ways. And I think that's why I want to try and help encourage different ways of thinking about exercise to help manage that worry as well. So the anxieties I tend to be asked on the ward around exercise is, will it make my pain worse? So if you do have pain that is affecting you day to day, as long as you know the cause of that pain, you can speak to your consultant. They can always appease and make sure that you're safe to be exercising. But if it's generally muscle aches and pains, it's the only advice I would mainly give is avoid high intensity and modify exercises if it makes your pain any worse. If it makes your pain severe, you need to stop and speak to a haematology team. But it doesn't mean that we can't do exercise. It's just trying to do it in a different way, which means that we can enjoy it, maybe a longer endurance exercise rather than it is that high intensity exercise that may exacerbate any pain. Low blood counts are an issue generally with the haematology population, but if hemoglobin levels are low, you'll tend to know about that with the symptoms of breathlessness and fatigue. If you're being going to day wards for any transfusions, it would be good to wait for that, and then do some exercise if you do feel particularly symptomatic. If not, you just do it to the level that your symptoms can allow. So if you're feeling particularly breathless when you're doing a run, maybe walk instead of running. So it's trying to adapt it to the symptoms that you feel you're able to manage. If platelets are low and you know that they're low, the main thing is to avoid high intensity exercise, and try not to do exercises that are increasing your risk of falling over. So if you balance exercises that are at risk of falls, I'd try to prevent that just whilst to try and prevent you falling to the floor. Falls and neuropathy, so pins and needles in your feet, are firstly extremely painful. And if your pain isn't under control, it'd be worth going to have that checked and see if we can get that under control. But also trying to build up balance exercises to help with the falls, because as neuropathy starts to affect the sensation in the feet, you are at more risk of fall. So trying to gently build up balance exercises, that might just be things like standing on one leg, or doing some floor-based or standing Tai Chi or some yoga, but very, very slowly and securely to avoid falling, but it's not something that you should avoid necessarily. And risk of fractures, especially for the patients in the myeloma population, that is a real anxiety because of what's been said on the wards or your understanding of that disease. And I think that is absolutely understandable. So it's trying to avoid high impact exercises, but then thinking about how the benefits of exercise are going to be so beneficial to you as well by increasing your strength and increasing that bone density as well with the exercises. So as long as your consultant's happy for you to start kind of exercising, by all means, it's something to continue, to start as well. So I wanted to try and change the perspective with it being activity versus exercise. So I think we've got across the board patients that are able to do walks for miles, runs, but also there's also people that are just starting out. And I think this is what's really, really important to recognise, is that if you feel tired at the end of the day because you've been shopping, you've done the gardening, you've done the cleaning, you've gone up and down the stairs loads of time, that's lots of exercise, because activity is a form of exercise. So it's trying to credit yourself as much as you can that you're doing loads already. So trying to fit exercise in every day may not be realistic because you're doing so much around the house, and just general life can be a massive form of exercise. So trying to change that perspective to see that you are doing really great with activities already, and maybe exercises just to top up that fitness, which is something that quite a few people have benefited from once they've realised that. Some indoor activities that you could always improve that fitness if you're not ready for exercise as such is maybe using the upstairs toilet instead of the downstairs toilet, or standing up twice before moving off a chair. Again, it's 2 squats rather than 1, or 5 squats when you're making a cup of tea or something. So going back to, if people don't have the time, integrating that into everyday life is going to be really, really important and really beneficial to you as well, so that it's quite manageable to do during your day. And I've put at the end yoga because it's got so many benefits as well as physically, but also mentally, and relaxation and mindfulness. It's an activity that people tend to really enjoy. In terms of outdoors, I'm guessing lots of people will be able to dog walk. So really good form of exercise that not everybody considers as that, because it's almost something that you have to do every day, but great form of exercise and something that people can just continue, and it also lengthen as well, so you're getting that progression. And sometimes if you're on a bus or something, getting off off of the bus stop 1 stop earlier, so you're walking a bit further. So it's just little changes in daily life can actually make you get fitter quite a lot quicker if you just make very small adjustments. So if you don't have equipment at home, to be effective, you don't need state-of-the-art equipment. It could be as simple as, if you're starting up, using a water bottle. You can use the bottom step of a set of stairs or something like that, which is just something that's very simple to find around the house. but then can start to progress those exercises quite quickly. And bodyweight exercises to fatigue are just as important to build lean muscle than it is using a massive weight on your shoulders as well. So it's maybe trying to adjust what we're trying to achieve. Is this pure strength that we're trying to achieve, or is this kind of trying to tone and gain those benefits of exercises which are easily managed by body weight exercises as well? So how to measure exercise, lots of people do it differently, and I think it's whatever works for you. It can be time, so I'm going to walk for an hour and then I'm going to progress it to an hour and a half. That might be something that is achievable because you can see that progression in time. Others use distance, so I want to walk 5 miles and then increase it to 6 and 7. So again, it's something that works for you in terms of psychologically. How does that really benefit to see that progression? You've also got heart rate. So if you wear a heart rate monitor, do you measure your fitness of how much you're working within your target zones of a heart rate potentially? Steps can be used. I'd be cautious with this though, because it can be demotivating if there's an ambiguous target. So sometimes the common thing at the moment you might have heard is 10,000 steps, but it can be very difficult to achieve that if you've got busy family life or calls on Teams or something like that. That means that you aren't actually active for a large majority of the day. So it might be something that you're not always going to hit every day. So it might be, I'd use that a little bit more cautiously if you're going to use steps. Fatigue levels, you can always score it out of 10 or however you want to manage fatigue levels, but you can measure it on how you feel after a particular exercise and then monitor whether that progresses over the coming weeks. Little bit more subjective, but that might be the main factor that people are measuring, and that might be something that is worth monitoring as well. I tend to use this, which is sessions per week. I know what I want to achieve and how many I need to do in that week, so I know that I've achieved my goal if I've achieved the sessions I was set out to do. So that might be a few walks, a few strength exercise, a few strength sessions, and maybe a yoga a week, or whatever works for you really. So it's not something that is set in stone. Whichever you feel is easiest, I'm happy with. And also consider exercises around the house completed. So if you do a day of cleaning, tick that off as an exercise day, because that is definitely a lot of activity and exercise. So trying to factor that into your measurement of exercise is also really, really important. So this is what we tend to use at Hallamshire for the outpatient gym groups, because it's a really good way of helping patients to know exactly where you're working at, but then not to push it too hard as well. So we're trying to get into certain training zones as well for your heart rate. So number one, obviously no activity, so there's no muscles working. We tend to ask patients to work between 4 to 6, so moderate activity. So you have some slight breathlessness, but you can carry on a conversation if I was to come and talk to you. So it's something that is a safe training zone for you to work within. It still gives you the exercise benefits, but it doesn't then feel that it's unsustainable, or you're not going to feel that if that fatigue is a real issue for you, that maybe that is something that you're not going to be able to manage after the exercise. So we found that that was the safest training zone for patients to work within to still achieve the goals. Obviously people are exceptionally different, but for someone who maybe hasn't started exercise for a number of months, it might be a nice way of monitoring how you're starting up. Obviously people will want to work at varying levels, and that is absolutely fine. As long as you've risk assessed that that's safe for you with all your with any treatment or medical issues, that's also great, because the harder that intensity is, we'll also gain those cardiovascular and strength benefits as well. So it's just one to work on and see where you think that you should be working, so that you've got a good rough idea, and try to help you with that. So how to log exercise. So it depends again on what you feel is suitable for you. So some people tick on a calendar, or a chart that you've got exercises per week and you tick it off, stick it on the fridge so you can see it every day. So it's a good reminder and motivational tool for you. I write in a diary, so what sessions I'm going to do on a day and tick it off. So it's something that you can see physically per week, what you've achieved during that week. Again, stickers are used, gold stars on calendars, so that again, you can see generally sessions or that you've achieved. Lots of people moving towards apps on phones, so there's so many that can log exercise. So again, it's something that you can do and that's visible day on day as to what you've achieved. And there's so many smartwatches out there, ranges of budgets that can monitor steps, heart rate, right up into distance of walks and runs as well. So again, it depends on how avidly you want to record what you're doing, but there's something out there for everybody. And I think the motivational benefits that gives you to log exercise is something that's really underrated. And I think if you did that, that would be great. So the thing is, making it a habit, it's great to set out and think of a goal and think about where we're going to go with this exercise, but we've got to repeat it and enjoy it to make it a habit. So it's the reason why I say incorporating it into activity, day-to-day activity, is so that it's always going to be a habit. You can do it whilst you're doing the daily kind of chores. So actually, it's always going to be habitual that you do some form of exercise during your day. Sometimes when you do it during the day, it can reduce the stress of exercises. I know I feel sometimes if I feel I need to do a session after work, I'm stressing that I'm not going to have time or that energy, or something else crops up. Whereas if you're doing it during the day and it's something you're enjoying, that stress is straight away taken away from you, that you feel you've got to do it, which I think is massive weight off your shoulders. And as I say, yeah, it can reduce the feeling of exercise being a chore if it's maybe not something that you're absolutely loving at the moment. And it's a sense of achievement that the exercise has been done. If it's starting to become a habit and you're enjoying doing it, you're ticking those sessions off daily, that's such an achievement that you know you're getting closer to that goal. So I think it's really good once it becomes a habit. It helps maintain a routine as well. So sometimes if you do certain exercises on specific days, that routine is there, it's more likely to become a habit. So I think trying to maybe keep routine exercises will help you to be more consistent with your program. If you feel that, again, it's a routine, there's less chance of failure to maintain, because you know on a certain day I do this and I've achieved it, then I can move on to the next task. You're more likely to make it a habit if you feel it's a routine. My favourite that I think is always going to make it habitual is, whilst you're waiting for things at home, do 5 squats, stand on one leg, do something that means that you're starting to do a little exercise program whilst you're doing your household chores. And I think that's what's going to really make a big difference to motivation. And it's be interesting to see at the end, have you ever succeeded in making a goal a habit? So making it really making something that you really wanted to achieve, started out, and actually then has become something that is already incorporated into your life. And I think it'd be really good to hear some stories about that. So how to keep motivated. So we've just gone through making it a routine. That's going to be your best shot. Regularly reviewing goals. So going back to the start, if you set regular goal reviews, you can see what you've succeeded and achieved in, reset another one that's slightly harder. Once you review your goals that you've actually achieved loads during the last month or so, or a couple of months, you're more motivated to carry on to progress those goals even further. Do things you enjoy. It's really good to think that if you wanted to start up a gym routine, but if it's not something you enjoy, it's always going to be a battle to try and get there. So if you enjoy walking, just make that goal to progress your walking distance or time, because I think that's something that you'll gain a lot from quality of life, enjoyment, and it just makes things a lot more easy to achieve. It's also things, if you enjoy it, you can involve family and friends. So it means if you go out for walks with family and friends, again, it's something that you don't feel you're actually achieving a goal, because it's something that you're loving to do. And I think that's something that's really important. And going back to reviewing goals, it means that you can also track your progress. So once you know how well you're doing, you'll always want to carry on, and you'll get a little bit more of that good feeling to want to do even more. This is what I've learned over the past year. Don't get disheartened if you miss a day. You're all human, things happen, things come up. And I think it's really hard quite a lot of people will criticize yourselves for not doing that exercise on that particular day, but actually it's fine. There's not a great deal that can go wrong by missing an exercise session per day. And I think just give yourself a bit of slack and actually just be more motivated for the next session, and you'll start to really come on rather than pulling yourself down if you didn't achieve something on that day. An importance to practice self-care, so looking after yourself, going back to being disheartened if you miss a day. Just look after yourself. If you don't do it, relax, enjoy, and then start again. And making sure that's really priority is self-care. It will always keep you motivated to carry on. And more importantly, reward yourself. So if you're doing great, I always, if I have a really hard session at the gym or something, I'll have a bath. I really enjoy doing something that I love to do. It might be that you, I don't know, you spend some time with your family and friends, or whatever that is that you really enjoy. Reward yourself. I think it's really, really good that you're achieving your goals. So do something that makes you feel good. And remember, you're doing great. Just starting up an exercise program can be really hard. And I think as you can gain a routine, learn about yourself, learn about your body and how it reacts, it's all learning for you. And you're doing a great job by starting or progressing as well. Kind of repeating here, but think about things you enjoy in exercise, self-care. It might be that just by increasing your awareness of your body and understanding that doing a little bit more is looking after yourself, but main thing is to start to do things that you enjoy. And yeah, going back to rewarding yourself, it might be a bubble bath, chatting to family and friends, but in the end, by doing things you enjoy, you're helping to maintain a healthier routine for longer rather than short stints of really intense, hard exercise you don't enjoy that is unsustainable. So doing all the exercise and self-care and doing things you enjoy will hopefully keep you healthier for much longer in terms of the exercise benefits. So in terms of exercise prescription, I don't tend to do something that is absolutely set in stone, because there's lots of different recommendations depending on your goal. So the goal might be weight loss, building strength, toning, increasing cardiovascular fitness. So it will all be different depending on your goal, but I don't think it's always important to solely focus on this. So as we said before with activities, just do the household chores. We're not going to do repetitions of that. So just try and see kind of activity specific, just go to how you're feeling during that activity. A good aim, if you are doing particular exercises, say squats or lunges, for example, a good aim is 10 to 20 reps, repeat 3 times. Depends on the weight that you're using as to whether you repeat that multiple times throughout the day. But a good aim to do if you're not using weights is to go to fatigue, so where your muscles are starting to feel pretty tired, pretty sore, where you feel you're going to start to need a rest. Have a rest and then repeat again, and it's starting to use that fatigue and start to build the muscles in that way. And aim for 3 sessions a week or more frequent sessions, and that will help curb the effects of fatigue if you're finding that it's particularly hard to do longer sessions. Little thing to remember, being physically active is the first step. So if you can just start to do the household chores and the household tasks, that's the first step. But also if you're able to do a lot more, then progressing and using all the goal setting advice is going to maybe take that exercise right to the next level, which is maybe where a few of you are as well. In combination with a healthy diet, you'll see and start to feel the results as well. So it's not maybe visibly that you'll see, but you'll start to feel better. You'll have that motivation, you'll have that energy to do that little bit more throughout the day, which is only going to help with quality of life. And a healthy body and mind is always the best combination, which I feel exercise is what encompasses that and able to achieve that. So there's a few useful resources I'd just like to go through. It kind of pitches at quite a few levels of exercise candidates really. So I know the Couch to 5K is something that quite a lot of people will have heard about, and it's 3 runs a week for 9 weeks. So if I click on this for you, hopefully it works. And I'll show you, because it's the NHS website. But the thing I like about the NHS website is that it gives you podcasts. So you can download it to, and you can use it every week for motivation. So you can have it on your headphones, and it will actually help take you through the 9 weeks. Not sure if it's going to, oh, might be loading there. So if you see here, can everybody see my screen? Yeah. So you can see here that the Couch to 5K, it's got lots of information around how it works, who's able to do it, what are the benefits, and you can get a running plan then, so you can take it through weeks 1 to 9 and download the podcast, which is really motivational in terms of keeping you on track. And it's also something that you want to tap into, so you want to be able to achieve that because you've got something that you can work towards. So always really good to access something like this. So I'll just go back to the next one.
Fran, it appears on my screen that that last link buffered. It didn't come through. I don't know.
Oh, did it not?
Yeah.
Okay. I might just be able to talk it through then, and then if anybody gets any opportunity to have a look at it.
Yeah, we'll be recording. We've recorded everything, so people will be able to revisit these links. Yeah,
that's fine. So
you can't access them. Yeah,
that's fine. So clicking on the link to Couch to 5K, there's options to download the podcast, and just as well as information that you can achieve to run from, if you've not run at all, to running 5K in 9 weeks. So that's a really good resource if running is something that you're looking into.
Fran, could I ask a question? Could I ask a question? Yeah. You've shared the actual physical slides for this session, as well as obviously we're recording this. If we provide the slides as well, that will give people access to the live links.
Yeah, I've checked them already just before the live, so they do work. So if you click on them on the,
if we can do that, we'll make the slides available so that people can access the links.
That's fine. So I can chat through them, and then you can access them at a later date. So
that's excellent. Thank you.
The next thing that I've used a lot during the lockdown is for patients who were suitable for the haematology gym group. I've actually referred to the Safe Fit program. So it's a trial for patients over 30 that have contact regularly with cancer rehab specialists that look at goals, look at your current level of fitness, and then do a number of weeks working over Zoom with you to try and progress to be able to achieve the goal that you're looking to do. We'll also give you advice around healthy eating and lifestyle. There is a little bit of a waiting list, but you can refer yourself just on the link at the bottom of the page. And I've had some really good outcome and feedback from it, that we've achieved what we set out to do, and that they've really enjoyed the company, and that also that really good motivational benefits, because they know someone's given them a ring and they're enjoying what they're doing. So really worth a go. For anybody under 30 as well, the website is currently down, but keep checking back on it. But the Move charity is very similar. It's Zoom online programs with cancer rehab specialists, and really good feedback. They're really responsive and able to give you so much support to progress through goals over Zoom with one-on-one. And I think that's an option that quite a lot of people have really enjoyed to be involved in. The NHS Strength and Flex plan, again, just click on the link, and there's so much information around beginners stretching and beginners strengthening exercises, up into intermediate and advanced as well. So there's videos and advice around that. So if you're just wanting to do some home-based exercises, that's the link that would be really beneficial to you, as you can mix and match, and you can do different length videos that will really help you to achieve what you feel you would like to. And same with the NHS Fitness Studio one at the top. There's lots of videos, and they do incorporate things like yoga, dance, a few of the dance exercises as well. So it's really good to just have a look and see what's out there, because they've really worked hard on trying to get an eclectic mix of all the videos that will really help progress your fitness, really. Usually there's walking groups. I think as things open up, again, looking into local walking groups would be really good. Not sure about anything around here at the moment, but I think there's definitely starting to look at what can be integrated again. So worth keeping an eye out on that. There's a charity push at the moment as well on Cancer Research UK that I thought was really nice, which was 10,000 steps for a month for fundraising opportunities. So it might be something that if you're not quite ready to do things on your own, it'd be really good to do as a team or as a group. And there's lots of ways to get involved in kind of charity and fundraising as well, which is another side to exercise as well. It might be something that you can keep you motivated to achieve. And just giving some examples at the bottom. So local council initiatives usually have gardening clubs, sports clubs. Again, as things reopen, keep an eye out. And YouTube's gone mad since COVID has kicked off. So I think that everybody's gone online. So looking into YouTube for exercise inspiration, as long as you're realistic around where your starting point is, there's so much to look at on YouTube as well for exercise programs, and online talks and advice sessions like this, or around treatments, or anything that you feel you want to know more of. I'm pretty sure there's quite a lot out there that can help update you even more. So really worth looking into as well. So I think that's about it. So in summary, the exercise in general has so many benefits. I've been able to take you through the journey to start exercising. And if you are already reignited the motivation to continue and progress, there'll always be peaks and troughs along the way, but that's what makes us human. So it's trying not to make that too much of a negative that actually demotivates you. It's trying to take that as a positive, reassessing where we are and moving forward with that as well. And if you can be motivated to exercise during COVID restrictions, what could you actually achieve in the future when we've got a normal society back? So I think you're doing great, and continue with whatever you're doing at the moment. But I hope I've helped to try and change some perspectives and help with any motivation. So thank you for listening.
Fran, thank you.
No problem.
You've given us a real, as Americans would say, smorgasbord of opportunities to explore through the link. And I think that's really good. Lots of topics, lots of areas. And I've been monitoring the incoming questions and those that we've already had. And I think starting out, right back to the beginning, it's starting out is an issue. You know, if you're starting from a low base, and where you are with your health, as well as, you know, what might be disease mediated or treatment mediated, you know, you can be inactivity impacted on you because of the actual disease, and you've then got to try and restart. And I think we've all reflected at the moment that COVID has played a significant part in that as well. I mean, I don't know about other people, but I always recognize around Christmas that I have a bulge, and I managed to get rid of it by the spring, and then I'm into summer, and it seems like there's another bulge this year. I don't know whether that's the case. So a lot of the questions that have been coming in about, you know, people starting from a lower base and with comorbidities, you know, what's a reasonable expectation there, and how do you get started? And also, you know, people not knowing at what level to start. So, Thea, I was going to offer to yourself and Mark first, because you've got quite a bit of experience in exercise, and you've also got quite a bit of experience, you know, traveling down the pathway of diagnosis, treatment, and recovery. What are your views on this, you know, about starting out?
I think the first thing to be aware of is as a leukemic, you become an expert in your own disease and your own body. So the first thing to remember is if you've got concerns, that the first person that will be aware of them is you. So use that as a guide. So if you think it's something you shouldn't do, then don't do it. But also, from the flip side of that is sometimes you've got to be brave, and you've got to step out and start somewhere. And I think Gail asked a question about this in the chat. And it's, you know, where do you start and how do you start? But, you know, the first positive there is, Gail, that you are prepared to start because you're asking that question. And pre-diagnosis, I was very fit, and all of a sudden chemotherapy took that away from me. You know, a chemical took my fitness away. I was extremely weak, but I was determined that I needed to do something for my mental health as well as the physical side of it. And for me, my marker was fence posts. So I'd go for a walk and I go, right, I can touch that one. And it would be 100 meters away, and it felt like it was 100 miles away. But I had to do it, and I would touch that post and I would turn around and I'd walk home. And as Francis said, it was, I felt good about doing that. So there was the reward, the emotional reward, and then, maybe the physical reward was a bit of chocolate or something that I liked. But every day I would do that same walk. And because it was along a pathway where I knew that there were multiple fence panels or telegraph poles, it was always about touching the post. And it was always about touching the one that was a bit further than the one I did yesterday. And then I would eventually get myself stronger and stronger during the cycles. And then I'd get knocked back again with the chemotherapy. So I'd start again, but it was cyclical. And it was something that I knew at the end of that 4 weeks that I would be fitter than I was or I would feel stronger than I felt 4 weeks ago. And that's how I kept my emotional, physical, mental health going during treatment, was just being able to push myself to do that. And I don't know, Mark, whether you had similar experiences.
Yeah, I mean, when I came out of hospital the first time, I couldn't walk. So it was like 2 months previously, I'd been running half marathons. And then to go from that to coming out of hospital in a wheelchair was tough. But I was just very determined to get my old life back. And then the first thing I started doing was things around the house, like washing up, cooking, hanging the washing out, because I knew I was moving then, and just slowly gaining strength. And then as well as that, trying to go out for a walk. But you must remember that some days you're going to overdo it. And some days, somebody told me a statement, which is, it's okay not to be okay. So it is very gradual, or it was in my case. I just wanted to get my old life back. So I was basically starting from scratch again.
Yeah.
I couldn't summarize that any better. I think that was exactly the advice we would provide in the whatever, as Thea said, goalposts, which are physical, so fence posts, lamp posts, and then progress. But as Mark said, the fatigue can be it's learning about yourself again, isn't it? It's that you now got a new element of fatigue that becomes sometimes hard to manage, but just because you're overdone on that day, reset, say that might have been a bit too much, and then pace yourself and learn about that, so that it's a constant learning process rather than it being a demotivating that I can't do it. You can, you just got to reset those targets.
I've got another question that's come from somebody in the audience, which is really quite appropriate and along similar lines. People, perhaps older people or people living with comorbidities, will naturally be starting from a lower base. So it's not just either the treatment or disease. I mean, have we got any guidance there as to actually how you establish your expectations with regards to and from where you're starting out, and if you've got any advice for people that have other health issues and also might be a bit more infirm or less mobile?
It might be something that is to consider where you are now. So how are you able to mobilize maybe around the house? Do you already walk with a stick or a frame maybe to get around? So we're looking at what you're able to physically manage on a flat. So if you're struggling to mobilize, maybe chair-based exercises with ankle weights, or maybe some bands, maybe something that is safer but also more effective for you. If you have any problems with heart conditions, again, something that you may become breathless quite easily. So again, chair-based exercises are still very good for you in terms of strengthening, because it's at the level that you're able and your body is able to achieve. So think about how you are functionally, and then think about what you're able to achieve from there, really. So if you've got a very good mobility status, you're able to do a lot more of the standing and walking exercises. If you are struggling a lot more with that, maybe chair-based ones to start with. Hopefully, if you've got more strength with the chair-based ones, you can then progress. You would hopefully see that your mobility may progress too. And as that improves, you may be able to start to gain that confidence to maybe try some standing exercises. So maybe hope that covers, but maybe understand what your comorbidity, how that affects you in the first place. And as Thea said, you know your body better than most people. So do what you feel is right for you, not push yourself out of that comfort zone if you know you're not going to be able to manage that.
So piecing a few questions together. Current lifestyle, people's lives have become a bit more sedentary on top of the illness. And I don't know if it's relevant, but it's been asked, and I kind of, how do you deal with bad habits that you've slipped into because of being confined to the house, being less mobile? Is there a way to overcome things psychologically? Because I don't know, I've had leukemia for 12, 13 years, and it doesn't change the person I am, and I still have bad habits. And I see trying to overcome that sometimes difficult. I'm just wondering, we as a population, we've been hit quite hard. We've been confined to quarters. If we've been going outdoors, we've been doing it upwind. Yeah, and that's if you can go outdoors. If you've got a garden, great, you can dive into that. But a lot of people, we've been confined to the house. We're sitting in front of these screens like we are now all the time. And if you're working digitally, you really do have a much more sedentary life. Is there a way of breaking that? Do people have any thoughts on that? Again, it's a part of getting started again.
Yeah, it's a toughie, isn't it? It's about creating new habits. And as Fran said, the thing about exercise is even if there's a reluctance to start it, the reward really is you get that dopamine, you get the endorphins, you get the addictive side of it that make you want to do more. But it's just the initial, I don't want to do this, how do I start it? But the only thing that I can say is just do it, just start it somehow, whether that be walk up the steps a bit quicker, run to the kettle, get up and change the TV channel. Not that we have buttons on TVs anymore, but just physically just do something. And although it's an extra stress on the body, that stress is going to have a positive impact eventually, and you will find yourself going, oh, do you know what, I do want to do something today. And it's just you then got that, and you're creating that new habit. So those old habits are still there, but they're just going to be overtaken by new habits which have got a positive impact on your health and your especially your mental health.
Absolutely. I think it's trying not to change so many things so quickly as well. So if you're trying to change your whole lifestyle in one, that isn't maintainable. So trying to do things like what Thea said, so do one thing at a time. So use the upstairs toilet instead of the downstairs as one example, rather than trying to escape all bad habits in one. Try and change one that you're not happy with. Once that's improved, change the next one, because it's all about maintaining that positivity. Once you're able to do one, you can move on to the next. But it's very demotivating if you're trying to change everything and not succeeding.
Yeah, don't ever set yourself up to fail, because that's a negative connotation that it's your downward spiral then. But just choose something that is achievable and that will will make you feel good about what you just did.
Really good insights there. And if I could share something with you, which was the activity, building exercise into activities. I was thwarted this year by the weather. We were locked in, and I deliberately haven't plumbed an outside tap in so that I have to water all of my plants, and I planted extra amounts of them so that's my exercise. And then the weather happened and I didn't get my exercise, and I feel that I slipped into bad habits. But also, it's also a bit too easy as well. I mean, somebody's raised a question about, advice for people that are on a daily chemotherapy. And I don't know if the question is related to daily chemo or relating to daily treatment. Many people may be on a continuous therapy. And Fran, you mentioned a few symptoms that people have to deal with, but one particular one, it maybe come under the bone pain, is sort of the arthralgia that can accompany continual targeted therapies. I mean, literally a comment from somebody that struggles just to lift their head off the bed in the morning from the pillow, because just getting moving, is really difficult. And also cramps and things of that nature. And I myself am on a BTK, and sometimes I question the guilt am I making excuses? Can I do more? Is there any advice to help sort of break the breakthrough phase in exercise, regardless of the disease? You know, the panelists have got a lot of experience in exercise. There always seems to be a breakthrough. Is that phrase "no pain, no gain" relevant? And how are we able to work through some of this? And how do we cope with side effects like spontaneous cramping and continual arthralgia or things of that nature? Is that too challenging a question?
It's a very complex one, I think, that can take a lot of unpicking. And I think you've got to consider why you've got the pain. So yes, is it the chemotherapy that is causing those symptoms that you can take longer to get ready in the morning, maybe, so starting to gently get up and about by propping yourself up, sitting on the bed and taking an hour or two to get ready in the morning rather than thinking you've got to rush around a lot. I know it's not always easy for people to fit that in maybe, but it's trying to give yourself that slack that takes you the time, but you're still doing that physical exercise just that little bit longer. It maybe preserves that fatigue a little bit more. The cramps, I can imagine, are really hard to deal with. And I think it's, again, just trying to see that maybe if they're spontaneous but pass, right, they've passed now, am I in a position that I can now do what I'd like to do? And then you've got that positivity that you've achieved what you've done despite the symptoms. If they're there more frequently, have you got any other way of heat or ways to calm the cramps to allow you to engage in a form of exercise? Really, really difficult, because again, everybody's on a spectrum like this, and it's really hard to know how people react to chemo before, during and after. So I think mainly listening to your body is what Thea said. You know it better than anybody else, and doing it at a pace that may not suit the next person but is suitable for you. It means you can still achieve what you want to, but in a timely way that is still giving you that positive outlook, if that makes sense in terms of the question.
That was very interesting. Thank you, Fran. Others, anybody got any comments on the topic?
I think Fran was best answering that one from a clinical point of view. Definitely.
Maybe this is a clinical question as well. I noticed in the talk that bone weaknesses and high impact exercise was built up to try to avoid that. And somebody else has raised a similar question with regards to potential osteoporosis caused by long-term treatment related issues. How do you define high impact exercise?
I would say kind of jumping, so kind of high level jumping, or kind of, it's hard to kind of define, isn't it? Because some people would think running as a high impact exercise, but I would maybe not class that as, it's more like jumping exercises in a sport, maybe in a sport environment. It's one that we tend to, because I've got the beauty of working with consultants every day, I gain my advice from them. So if anybody has that concern, you would need to go to get your haematology team to give you that further advice about safety, I think is what I would advise for that. But anything that you can minimize so that you're not having kind of high impact on the floor, kind of traveling up through the bones, will also help protect that bone health a little bit more.
Thanks, Fran. Well, I guess we're on the topic of safety. We've got quite a few questions that are coming around safety. And one of the questions is maybe patients could also ask, a patient has been told that a patient has been told no longer needs treatment, and is asking, can I carry on now as normal and exercise as I always have prior to treatment? I guess it's a question of expectations, and we don't know what type of treatment and how severe the treatment is, but
all very patient-based, isn't it?
Yeah. Maybe, Mark, you might have some thoughts on this. You've shared some of your treatment journey, and you've had a few surprises along the way. Have you any thoughts on this from an expectations?
Yeah, I mean, my
and
treatment,
capability? You know, what's appropriate?
well, my capability is not as good as it was because I had lung damage and stuff. But yeah, you've just got to know your limitations, really, and don't beat yourself up if you can't do what you used to do. It's as again another statement they told me, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So once your treatment stops, you're not going to be back where you were. You're going to be heading towards where you were, hopefully. And your body has been battered so much over the last few years, or most people with a blood cancer has. So it's a gradual process.
So be fair to yourself, and there's a certain amount
Yeah.
of trial and error. You won't find out until you test yourself to some degree within reasonable boundaries.
I quite get told off by my wife because I'm cursing because I can't run as fast as I used to, but I never will, you know. So you've got to just know, you just got to know your limitations and sort of be grateful that you can run, or you can cycle, or you can go to the gym. But yeah, once your treatment finishes, it's still a long journey ahead, I think. There's going to be little setbacks. I contracted shingles a couple of months, well, about 6 weeks ago. Maybe I was overdoing the running, or maybe it's something else, but so that knocked me back then. So sort of back to square one again.
That's interesting, Mark. You're at three years in remission, is that right?
Well, I got in remission, then I relapsed 2.5 years ago. So then I had to have a transplant.
Right.
So I'm 2 years in remission now.
Yeah, because I got to 2 years remission and I contracted shingles as well.
Ah, weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's a thing.
It's very common. Very common.
And how are you feeling now with this? Does it set you back again?
Oh, I'm back now. I'm feeling good now. But you know, I have lost the bit of fitness I had that I've gained, but hopefully it'll come back.
So as a patient, would you have a fixed plan in terms of how you stepped out of treatment back into some form of normality? Or would you have to, I mean, I would say as a patient as well, you have to have a flexible mindset that you're going to have to adjust according to how you're feeling on the day or where you are in your therapy.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't set myself big challenges yet because it's still early days. I started running properly again about 9 months ago. Well, I say properly, I could run about 9 months ago, and I built it up to running 5 miles. The plan is to possibly run a half marathon in the autumn, depending on how it goes, really.
Watch this space. I'm sure you will.
Yeah, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter.
Thea, you made a comment earlier, probably off air, that you're strongest you've ever been.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that an accident?
Yeah, maybe I got something else shoved in my transfusion when they were giving me chemotherapy. I'm not sure, but I'm just thinking around safety, and this is absolutely not a clinical perspective at all. This is just a personal experience. But I've always been concerned about, because I had cardiotoxic drugs. I was always worried about a late presentation of a myopathy, and I'm very fortunate that I work with KOLs within the cardiology field, and although it wasn't provided by the NHS, I was able to have echoes to check the health of my heart and the strength of it, because going back to what I would call training rather than sort of just progressing my fitness, I wanted to make sure that I was safe, and that I wasn't overly stressing my heart rate. I mean, I've never worn a heart rate monitor ever. I probably should, but I don't. But I was given the advice by people who know me, and again, this really isn't I'm not advocating this at all, it's just experience. I was just told, but just do what you can, and again, it goes back to, you know, your own body. I know if my heart's going too fast, I know if it's working too hard, I know physically how that feels to just be depleted, and when to stop. Actually, no, my friends would tell you that I don't know when to stop. This would carry on. But I did have that guidance from clinical people to support me through my my progress into where I am now.
Thanks
And I
for
think
that, Thea.
clinically, if you don't have the follow-ups that maybe you were happy to have, during the treatment, yeah, you're absolutely right, Thea. I think it's just go on the body, the expectation that you feel you have with the body, and you know something's not right. You probably are right, and maybe have a look at that. But if you're feeling well, kind of run with that, because that's great. The fact that you're feeling well, you're able to achieve, kind of carry on.
And I think that's a scary place for patients. And I don't know, to those who are listening, who are post-treatment, you live a prescribed life for such an intense period of time, where you have got an army of healthcare professionals who tell you what you can eat, tell you what you can touch, tell you what you can do, tell you what time you have to have your medication. And then all of a sudden, everything disappears all at once, and that scaffolding goes, and you're left there on your own. You think, what do I do now? What's safe? I've been told, 6 months ago, I was told that if I sneezed, I might die. And then now I'm on my own. What happens next? And that's the gap that I feel as a patient, that it needs to be there. And that's what Leukemia Care is fantastic at doing, is that link and that bridge to get you from being a patient to being you again, and giving you some markers and some guides and where you can do it and how you can achieve it. But I know from my experience, and I'm sure there are people that are still listening that also have got all of those questions: is what's safe? What can I do? What will I die? Will this kill me? How should I be doing this? They're all questions. They're all I'm being quite candid and quite open here with feelings. But I think when you've been faced with your early mortality, those are questions that you can ask, and you should ask them. And never ever think about anything as a silly question. Just go and ask somebody, and if you don't ask, you won't find that answer, and if you don't get the answer, you won't have that support.
I'll tell you what, that's very powerful advice, and I wonder how many people do ask their key workers or their care teams around the area of exercise and safety in getting back involved again. I suppose on that note, there's another question in. COVID has kind of put us into that as well, from a consultation point of view, with regards to people's ability to be able to attend, Pilates classes or indoor activities when there might be a risk of being immune compromised. And I guess that's a question that we as a charity advise people consult with your healthcare team to help you set your own level of, what your actual risk is. But just answering that question, maybe Fran, gaining guidance from the care team around healthy levels of exercise, what's safe. What is the situation with regards to access to exercise specialists through your care teams? If people want to talk to somebody, or if they feel that they have issues that they really would need some professional and clinical help with, how do people gain access to somebody like yourself?
So at Hallamshire, I work closely with the consultants, transplant nurses, specialist nurses. So as a team, we work relatively closely. So in clinics, either face to face or on the phone, if someone is mentioned that either they're really immobile or to the point where actually I'm ready to progress, they're always happy to email, and I can then contact the patient. So this is during COVID times. This hasn't happened before, but it's actually a good way of me kind of getting involved in the patients that I don't necessarily see at home. So I can ring them up, refer them to the charities I mentioned earlier about the online program, or give them some advice over the phone. So we aren't offering face-to-face with me particularly, well, not at all at the moment, but definitely able to be guided by the consultants to contact people at home, and then we can go through advice and discussion. I then use that on the ward as well, so I'm trying to get to as many people as I can, so acute and in the community. So it does help with having a good team, as the haematology team in entirety that I'm involved in, rather than being separate to. And anybody can ask for a telephone call and advice then in Sheffield for that.
Thanks, Fran. I'm mindful at the moment of the time. I think you raised it, Thea, with regards to rehabilitation and recovery from treatment. Again, sorry if I'm stumbling through some of the questions at the moment. Probably not relevant. There's a question here about benefit of exercise. When I say relevant to you, because both of you as patients were acute patients and didn't have a lot of time to prepare your health ahead of treatment. Maybe Fran, you would be able to answer this question. You know, what are the benefits of exercise ahead of treatment? You know, if somebody's diagnosed with a condition and they may have some time until treatment. Have you had any thoughts around that?
Absolutely, it's absolutely key. With Mark's experience of going through a transplant, we work a lot with the patients in transplant during and after. Unfortunately, we don't have the access beforehand, but I can imagine, I'll chat with Mark in a minute, but the fitness, the fitter you are, hopefully the better you will be able to have that resilience to the transplant, able to maintain that mobility and that strength that little bit better than someone maybe who isn't as fit and strong. Also, even just fitness to go to transplant. If you are fitter, you are more likely to be a candidate that will thrive in that environment rather than really struggle. So you've got to think of how, transplants take a lot out of your body. That's an understatement. And I think the fitter you are, cardiovascularly, strength-wise, mentally, will only take you forward. And same with chemo. If you're coming in electively or for chemo, having all those side effects, if you still got that level of strength and ability to be able to get around, that will only benefit you rather than feeling that you are absolutely unable to move and you then lose that strength very, very quickly. So fitness prehab to any treatment is absolutely key, and we can only help you.
That's sound advice. Maybe I got it wrong. Obviously, people approaching transplant, maybe you do have a bit of time to prepare. But as a chronic patient myself, I can definitely see the values in that, and that would where people have got the opportunity, and many do. I mean, as leukemia patients, we all look at if the day we're all allowed back in a room together. Normally, we'd be all in a room together and we look around and look at how incredibly healthy everybody is, because people do make those lifestyle adjustments.
I think if we're all being honest, we all live with the fear of relapse, regardless of how far we are away from our treatment, regardless of time. There's always the demon that sits there with that fear of relapse. And the way I think about my body and my fitness is that I'm battle ready. That if something was to kick off again, I'm ready, mentally and physically.
That's a brilliant way of seeing it, I think, and you're always on the ball around that, then, aren't you?
Yeah.
When I was treated 3 years ago and got remission, and they said they didn't give me a transplant then, they sort of said basically watch and wait. So reading statistically about AML, a lot of elderly patients like myself do relapse. So I was determined to get as fit as I could, because I knew if I relapsed, I'd be in a better state for a transplant. And I was quite fit when I relapsed. It was quite surreal to be told I was relapsing, because I was back running quite well again. And then the biopsy said, you're relapsing. So the treatment then to transplant is very quick. So I went in very fit. So definitely worth thinking about anyway.
That's really insightful. Thanks. I'm just mindful again, probably time for one more question before we go to the finishing slides. And it's around fears and anxiety and coping with guilt of not achieving, not being able to join in activities with other people. I'm just wondering, Fran, maybe you might be the person that might be able to answer that aspect, that part of living with the disease, living with symptoms, living with the inability to be able to exercise. It's also part of the current situation where people have the inability to associate. I don't know if you can help with that.
I think in the longer term, hopefully the ability to socialise and be able to be involved, that will start to improve. So I'm hoping that the current climate takes care of that, in the future. In terms of feeling guilty, I think it's very, very hard to, I'm not in the position that most of you guys are, but I think how well you're doing just to be able to manage everything day to day. So I think the guilt has to come kind of from within, that of actually changing that perspective that you are doing awesome, and actually that this is just by getting around and doing what you can do. Any exercise is an absolute bonus, and I think it's trying to positively flip that to the bonus that you are trying to achieve that goal that little bit quicker, rather than the guilt that you're not achieving, because you are, by being able to do the washing up, do the cleaning, do the cooking. And I think it's trying to flip it that you've been through an ordeal, longer, years, months, however long your treatment, and still carrying on, as Mark and Thea said about, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So you got to consider what's gone on. And I think actually when you can put life into perspective, everything you're achieving is brilliant. And it's natural to feel guilt, but there shouldn't be guilt there. It should only be motivation to try and do little bits and little bits more, if that makes sense. So I think really putting life into perspective and congratulating yourself rather than it being a negative that you're not achieving.
Fran, that's a lovely way to end the session. Yes, we can, if a little bit differently.
Exactly, time-wise or ability-wise, you'll always get there, just maybe in a few more sections than you'd like to, but you'll always get there.
Listen, thank you everybody for the discussion. I've just got a few slides to run through and then we'll end the session, but it's been terrific. Thank you. Could we have the slides up, please? So I've just run through some information sources. Fran's very kindly provided lots of links to exercise information and different strategies that may fit you. We'll make sure you have the slides as well as the presentation so that you can access those links. Leukaemia Care provide a broad range of information support. So we've got ongoing webinars coming up in the next slide. You'll see our next few webinars. I believe there's one on use of blood products and relevance of blood products. And we've also got the next steps with COVID. We've got a very interesting webinar, which is looking at how patients are going to be able to integrate into society and next steps following the lifting of the final stages of lockdown. We're going to be joined by Dr. Helen Parry on that webinar, who has led a lot of the haematology research into vaccine efficacy and the impact on blood cancer patients. So that's a recommended visit if you can. Touching on everything else, we provide regular newsletters. The magazine comes out quarterly. Great issue this month. If you haven't seen it, dip in and have a look. Charlotte runs a fantastic podcast series. She just done one last night. So if you get a chance to pop in, do. Social media is always busy. I don't know how the guys keep up with it. I certainly can't keep up with them. And the website is immense. Lots of information. So please visit. Next slide, please. Podcast I've covered. There we have a picture of Charlotte leading her great initiative. So please do drop in. Really worth a visit. Great if you're gardening or doing something else. Stick your earphones on, and you can relate and connect with other patients sharing their experience. Next slide, please. Support. Well, everybody needs a bit of support. There's probably a lot more support now. So, we've got a great range of support services. The helpline is staffed by 2 clinical nurse specialists, as well as the support services team. We've extended virtual support groups. Many of you in the audience will already be part of a support group. If you haven't, explore. There's plenty in your area. Great network. Information's on the website. Advocacy services, we have a great welfare advocacy officer who's being kept extremely busy. Worth talking to welfare if you're going through treatment or if you need assistance with financial issues. And obviously the advocacy support team, of which I'm a part, are there to personally advocate for you as patients. Online forums, we keep busy with the Facebook groups. We're broadcasting live. Really great to have you with us on Facebook at the moment. We've got the online forums as well. Body scheme has never been busier. If you're interested in hooking up with somebody that shares similar issues to you with your disease, get in touch with the charity. Or if you want to be a buddy, please volunteer yourself. We know at the moment there are a few people looking for buddies and we may not have them. And we're running a counselling fund at the moment that will give you 2 sessions of counselling services. I think it's running on a 2-month backlog at the moment, but please do, if you feel that you need counselling support, contact the charity and we'll look into supporting you with that. Next slide, please. I did a couple of links to the slides this morning, support Fran with hers. A little exercise a day goes a long way. Many of us are still, maybe housebound, may not be able to get out and about. There's plenty of virtual fundraising opportunities available with Leukemia Care. Great way that could motivate yourself to help with your own exercise. Please do have a look on the website. We've still got plenty of fundraising events up there. If you're a runner, if you're a potential cycler, please go there. Big targets, maybe baby steps, but if you're ready for that, please do step up and have a look. And there's still plenty of exercise tips on the website, so you can visit that. And I think we have one more slide after. Yes, we do. I covered these earlier. Please join us for the next 2 webinars if you'd like. COVID update, 3:30, 12th of July, and how blood products are used in care of leukemia patients. So with that, thank you everybody for a terrific session. If you want to get in touch with us, here are our contact details. I'll leave them up for a minute or 2 just as we're ending the session. I'd like to thank our panel again. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Thea, Mark, Fran, excellent advice. It'll be enduring content. We recorded this session. It'll be put up on the website and on YouTube, and it'll be available as of pretty immediately on Facebook if people want to visit it. So thank you everybody for a terrific session, and have a good evening and a good life.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye everyone.